Hey guys, all right, today we're going to geek out on some hunger hormones. I'm going to call this video The Case for Hunger. And I kind of love this stuff, so this video might be a little bit long, but hang with me because I think it's really fascinating information. We're going to address the two main hunger hormones, or the two hormones that are involved with eating, hunger and fullness, and kind of what their purposes are, and some information about those, and make the case as to why should we care, okay? And how eating at 0 and stopping at 5 stimulates these and helps us maintain a healthy metabolism and body composition. So we're going to start with ghrelin. Ghrelin is often referred to as the hunger hormone, and it sometimes gets a bad rap because it being the hunger hormone, it lets us know that we're hungry, and people will blame it for an increased appetite leading to overeating and weight gain. But ghrelin is not released until the stomach is actually empty. So you need to get to a 0 before you're going to have a release of ghrelin. And ghrelin, so it's released when your stomach is at 0, and it stops when your stomach is comfortably stretched with sufficient food. So that's about a 5, right, on the hunger scale. Now, ghrelin, the release of ghrelin also stimulates some other cool stuff. Specifically, it stimulates the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is what releases a hormone called human growth hormone. Now, human growth hormone in children is responsible for helping them grow. In adults, because we're not growing, we're not adding height anymore, the primary function in adults is that it regulates a healthy metabolism and cell growth and regeneration, and including regulation of the blood sugar. Okay, so when we eat, especially carbohydrate-rich foods, but really anything, those foods are converted into glucose. Glucose is a great source of energy. It's a source of energy for all of our organs, our muscles, our tissues, including our brains, and all of those things. And the glucose provides nutrients to all of those things, our organs, our muscles, our nervous system. Okay, so glucose is an important thing. Too much blood glucose can lead to a problem, including prediabetes and diabetes. And so the counteract to the glucose in the blood is insulin. And ghrelin also stimulates the release of insulin to counteract the blood sugar from the foods that we eat. So that ghrelin, by stimulating the insulin, is going to help to regulate our blood sugar, which is a really important function of human growth hormone as well. Increasing muscle mass and bone density is impossible without adequate amounts of human growth hormone. So we definitely need that. Now, when human growth hormone is released, it only stays in the bloodstream for a few minutes, which is long enough for the liver to convert it into growth factors, specifically an insulin-like growth factor 1, which has a powerful anabolic properties. Anabolic means it builds muscle, it builds tissues, it builds bone density. Okay, so the human growth hormone, the liver converts those growth hormones into this IGF-1, among other things. And because that release of the human growth hormone is stimulated by ghrelin, among other things, but ghrelin is a huge part of that, we mostly see kind of the spikes in human growth hormone release at night, because at night you're not eating for a period of several hours, and so your stomach gets empty, and so that human growth hormone is released. It can also, um, if you think about it, if you're getting empty periodically through the day, you're going to have more frequent releases of that human growth hormone, which is going to be picked up by the liver and converted into those growth factors, which are going to stimulate cell growth and regeneration. It's going to regulate your blood sugar. It's going to help you maintain normal body structure and metabolism and healthy organs and nervous system and all of that. So if we're eating all day long and then we only get empty at night, then we have a limited opportunity for the release of that human growth hormone, and we're not optimizing our body's function to keep us healthy. So that's one of my favorite effects of the ghrelin, is that release of the human growth hormone because it's so powerful. Now, a lot of people like bodybuilders and stuff, they will take a synthetic human growth hormone to try to mimic the effect of what our bodies naturally will produce. And oftentimes that's because they're also like trying to pack in the calories. So their body never gets that digestive rest to release enough human growth hormone on its own. Plus they just want to enhance the effects of it. But that's not necessary. It's completely not necessary. If you are getting to 0 and eating to 5 consistently, your body is going to release all of the human growth hormone that it needs to maintain that homeostasis, that happy place it likes to be in. So I think that's really cool. Ghrelin also, it's important to remember that sugar and highly processed foods that are designed to like melt in your mouth, okay, they dissolve and digest very quickly. They're not going to stretch the stomach lining to that 5 where the ghrelin is kind of shut down. And so you want to keep those limited, because otherwise you're not signaling, the stomach is not signaling that, hey, we've had enough. You can shut down the ghrelin, which is keeping my appetite high. Okay, so high fiber, high protein foods, there's more bulk in those. They don't like break down quite as quickly. And so they will get into the stomach and stretch it to that 5 and trigger the decrease of the ghrelin so that the appetite is suppressed the way it's supposed to be when we have enough food in our stomach. So let's move on really quickly then to leptin. Leptin is ghrelin's counterpart, and leptin is what lets us know that we have had enough or that we have enough stored energy. Okay, it's released by the fat cells, and it lets us know when we're full or when we already have enough stored energy. So when people who are overweight or who are carrying excess body fat, they have increased levels of leptin, which makes sense because the more the more full your fat cells are, the more leptin they're going to release, and the overweight will then have a decreased ghrelin, which kind of goes against what you might think. You might think that if you're overweight, it's because you have a much higher appetite. But the reality is the reason the ghrelin is decreased is because you're not getting to empty in order for it to be released. So naturally thin people who eat naturally according to their hunger are going to have increased ghrelin. And the way to keep healthy ghrelin levels is to eat when you're hungry, to eat sufficient amounts of foods that trigger that suppression of the ghrelin hormone when you've had enough food. And also, when you're overweight, you can develop a leptin resistance. So you would think that if you have increased leptin, that your body will say, hey, you don't need to eat. But when you're overweight, you become resistant to that leptin. So you're not actually it's not actually communicating with the hypothalamus that tells you that you've had enough to eat. So that means it interrupts your fullness cues. You don't know when to stop. And because you're habitually overeating, you're not getting that ghrelin release. So you're not getting all the great benefits with that. So if you are overweight and you're not getting hungry as frequently as you kind of feel like you should, that might be because you've got your fat cells are releasing more amounts of leptin than they would if you were at a more normal or lighter body weight. And so it would be understandable if you got hungry less frequently. And so here we come in right back to trust your body to know what it needs, and don't freak out if you're not getting hungry very often. Your body is going to know what you need. It's going to tell you. So listen, pay attention to those appetite signals, those hunger signals, and just roll with it. And as you shed body fat, your ghrelin levels will normalize, your leptin levels will normalize, and you're going to notice your appetite is going to kind of moderate and what's the word? Adjust with those normalizing, regulating hunger hormones. So hopefully you found this informative. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you have any questions or you want more information, I'm happy to help find answers. But hopefully this also kind of lends a little bit more science-y credibility to the idea of allowing yourself to get empty and then stopping at full, which we'll practice in a few weeks.